Now let's continue from last time. I've laid out all the API endpoints that we need to write. So we're gonna start from a upload file endpoints, which is gonna be a post request. And then we're gonna do retrieve a list of files. This is gonna be a get request, of course, and then retrieve single file metadata. This is also gonna be a get request, and then edit file metadata is gonna be a put request. And the last one is delete file is obviously a delete request. So let's start from upload file endpoints. So just like the hello routes, we're gonna do a server dot handle func, and then this time it's gonna be a post request. The routes is just gonna be file, and then we call handler upload file. So let's copy this and head to the handler.go file. Let's actually create the upload file function. So func upload file, and then http dot response writer, and then r http dot request. So basically we're gonna receive the file from HTML form elements, and then we're gonna save the file content on our server. And later on, we're gonna be adding database and then save the file metadata to a database table. So we're gonna start by receiving the file from the form. We can use the r.form file function, and then the key is just file. All right, and then the form file will return a file first of all, and then a file handler, and then an error. So let's first deal with the error. So if error is not null, we're gonna first of all we're gonna log that. So error failed to get file from form. So let's add the error message, and then let's actually send the header. So status bad request. All right, and then let's return. All right, now if there's no error, let's first of all remember to close the file. So let's actually defer that. So f.close. So this is gonna close the file when everything is done executing in this function. Now, for now, I'm just gonna output the file name and the file size to test our endpoints. So slog.info file name is plus, so file handler dot file name, right? And then also slog dot info, and then file size is file handler dot size. All right, so apparently this is a integer, so we need to wrap that around inside of a fmt dot sprintf function to make it as a string. So we can do this, and then we do %d. All right, just like that, and then we do w.write header http dot status okay, and then just return. Now let's run this and make sure our program is okay, and then let's pull up Postman. So let's create a new request, a post request. So let's do http localhost 8080 file, and then switch to the body tag, and then form data, the key is file, and then let's choose the file. So let's select file, we do golang.png, and then let's send the request. Let's go back to our IDE. Now, as you can see, it says file name is golang.png, which is correct. And then file size is 63.6 kilobytes. That means our endpoint's working. let's actually save the file in our system. So I've created a new directory as the root directory for everything that we're going to be storing on our system. So basically, all the files that we uploaded to the server is going to be located under this path. All right, so let's actually copy this and then set this up as a environment variable in our application. So let's call it root_dir equals, paste in the path like this. So let's go back to the main.go file. And then what I wanted to do is to initialize this path whenever we start this program. So right after we load the environment variables, let's do actually error equals os dot make dir all, and then the path os dot get env, and then root dir, and then the permission is 0755. And then this is going to give the directory owner all the necessary permissions. So, and then deal with the error. So if error is not no, and then I wanted to slog the error. All right. So fail to create root dir plus error message, and then we just simply exit the program. All right, so that's set up, and then let's go on to the handler file. First of all, let's actually comment these out since we don't need that. Now let's define our new file path. So new file path should be the combination of our root dir with the file name. All right, so we can use the file path dot join method, and then the first parameter should be the os dot get env root dir, and then joining by file name, which we can get from file handler dot file name. So this is the new file, and then let's actually create it. So new file error equals os dot create new file path. If error is not no, let's log the error. Failed to create new file. And then w.write header. This time it's gonna be a status internal server error, then return. And then if there's no error, we wanted to first of all always remember to close the file. So defer new file dot close, and then let's actually copy the content of the uploaded file into our new file. So what I wanted to do is error equals io dot copy. So the first parameter is the destination, so new file, and then the second parameter is the source, which is just f, which is this variable here. We get it from the form file. And then deal with the error. So if error is not no, we wanted to obviously log the error, so failed to save file. Error w.write header http dot status internal server error, and then just return. All right, that's about it. So let's actually run the program and see if everything works. All right, so now our program is running. Let's pull up Postman, and then let's also pull up our root directory inside of File Explorer. So if everything goes well, whenever we send a request, this golang.png file should appear inside of our directory. All right, so let's send the request. There says status okay. Now, as you can see, the golang.png file is in our directory. That means our upload is complete. Before we continue with the coding, I actually wanted to take the time to set up the database, because what we're going to do next is going to involve a lot of database operations. So we're going to be using PostgreSQL for this project, and this is their official website. So let's click on download and then follow the instructions for your operating system to install Postgres on your computer. One thing that I wanted to mention for Windows users is to remember to add the bin folder of your installation path to your system's path variable. For example, for me, I have the installation path as program files, and then Postgres 17, and then bin. So make sure to add this to your system's path variable. This is going to allow you to use the command line tool to interact with the database. And I will be demonstrating how to do that later on in the series. Now, after installation, let's pull up terminal. So let's use the PSQL command line tool to interact with the database. So let's type PSQL. Let's specify the host address, which is actually localhost. So 127.0.0.1. And then we specify the user. The default user is actually just Postgres. And then the database we're gonna connecting to is also defaults to Postgres. Let's hit enter. Now it's asking for the password. We actually set this up during installation, so make sure you remember it. And then hit enter. Now we're entering the PSQL tool. And then what I'm gonna do is I wanted to create a new user with super user privilege, and then we're gonna create a new database, and then we're gonna grant all the privileges of the new database to the new user. All right, so now let's create the user. So the command is create user, and then followed by the username. I'm just gonna call it coding master. And then it's a super user, and then with the login password, I'm just gonna call it password at 123, and then finish by semicolon and hit enter. So now it says create row, and then let's create a new database. So create database. For this project, database name is just Cloud Drive. All right, next we're gonna grant all the privileges on database Cloud Drive to user coding master. So the command is grant all privileges on database Cloud Drive to coding master, and hit enter. So now it says grant, and then we can actually quit PSQL for now, and then we're gonna log in again with the new user and new database. So this time the username is coding master, and then the database name is Cloud Drive. And let's hit enter. It's asking for password. The password is actually password at 123. Let's hit enter. Now, as you can see, the connection to the new database is successful. We can now go back to our IDE and continue with our project. All right, so now let's see how to make the database connection in our application. So to do that, let's first of all create a new directory in our project's root. So let's call it utils, and then inside of it, let's create a new Go file. This one's called db.go. All right, and then add it to git. All right, so in order to connect to the database, we first of all needs to install a package, which is the PostgreSQL driver. So let's actually open up a terminal. Let's type go get github.com/lib/pq and hit enter. And then let's import it in our code. So inside of db.go under package utils, let's import underscore, and then let's just actually copy this, copy, and then paste it. So the underscore means that we need this package in our program, but we're not gonna call any functions inside of it. So let's define our DB type. So type DB, it's a struct, and then inside of it, we want SQL.db. All right, so this SQL package comes with the Go standard libraries. And then let's create a new function. So func create DB, and then we'll return a DB object. Now, the first thing we're gonna do is to get the DB address. So DB address equals os.getEnv. We're gonna get that from the environment variable. So DB address. And then let's see if DB address it's empty, we're just gonna panic, say invalid database address, and then let's print some logs. So slog.info, connecting to database plus the DB address. And then let's actually call the function to make the connection. So DB error equals SQL.open. And then the open function takes two parameters. The first one is the driver name. In our case, it is Postgres. And then the second parameter is our DB address. And then if error is not null, we want to log the error. So slog.error failed to connect to DB plus error.error, and then return no. And if there's no error, that means connection is successful. So we want to log that. So slog.info, so connected to database success. All right, and then we just simply return the DB object. So this function, make sure that the create DB signature, it's start with a lowercase c, because we don't want outside packages to call this. All right, so now what I wanted to do is to create a single database connection for every application. All right, so we don't want it to create too many connections if we have too much database operations in our application. So to do that, we can use the sync.once data type in Golang. So let's define a variable called db_once, which is a sync.once type. And then we're also gonna have our app_db, which is gonna be our DB type defined up here. And then we're actually gonna have a new function. So function, and this is getDB. This is uppercase, which is accessible by the outside packages. So it's gonna return a DB type. And then what we're gonna do is call db_once.do func and initialize the app_db. So app_db equals createDB. All right, and then we can just return app_db. All right, so basically what this does is whenever we call getDB, if it's the first time we're calling it, it's gonna execute the once.do and the function inside of it, which is createDB. This is gonna create the database connection. All right, and then if we're calling the getDB more than once, the rest of function calls are gonna skip the do function and then just return the app_db, which means we're gonna reuse the same connection over and over again. All right, so this is a good practice to actually only making one connections per application. And later on, we're gonna do the same thing for Redis as well. All right, so let's go to our main.go and actually calling the getDB and making our database connection. So right after we load the environment variables, let's do db equals utils.getDB, and then if db is null. We log the error, so fail to connect database, and then os.exit 1. All right, so next step is to add our database connection environment variable. So we call it, let's go to db.go and copy that. So db address, let's paste that in. So db address equals, usually a Postgres connection URL looks like any URL, but replace HTTP with Postgres. So Postgres, and then :// follow the double slash. It's our username, which is coding master, and then colon followed by your password, which is password at 123, and then at followed by the database host, which is just localhost, and then colon port number, so 5233, and then slash the database name for this project. It is Cloud Drive. I think that's all that we need. We can actually run this program and see if we can have a successful connection to the database. So let's run this. All right, it says connected to database success. That means our code works. We can moving on to creating the database table and then save our file metadata to database.